All right, in the interest of everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome, everyone, today to the NNLM All of Us Community Awards Informational Webinar. My name is Sharon. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an engagement specialist at the NNLM All of Us Program Center. And one of my responsibilities as an engagement specialist is to oversee our awards program. So I'm really excited to talk to you all about our latest funding opportunity. I'm joined by my colleagues today in the chat. Thank you, Stefania Costa Ramirez, for sharing out messages and links during today's session. If you're watching this webinar live with us today and have any questions, feel free to ask them by sending a message to everyone in the chat or Q&A, and our team will be monitoring that. A downloadable copy of these slides and this recording will be made available on our website after the session. So a quick overview for today's webinar. I'll be going over a little bit about our organization, essential details about our awards and funding requirements, how to apply with suggested tips, what happens after you apply, and then we'll wrap up the webinar with a Q&A. So first, a little bit about our organization. The NNLM All of Us Program Center, otherwise known as the NAPC, is a partnership between the network of the National Library of Medicine and the National Institutes of Health All of Us Research Program. The NNLM provides our members training, outreach, and funding to improve access to health information. All of Us is NIH's precision medicine initiative to advance healthcare by enrolling 1 million or more participants to contribute their health data. Together through the NAPC, we provide resources for NNLM members to raise awareness about All of Us and to partner with communities who are underrepresented in biomedical research in order to improve health, digital, and related literacy skills. If you'd like to learn more about NNLM and All of Us, you can check out the websites featured on this slide. Just in case some folks on this call today aren't as familiar with the All of Us research program, I'm now going to show a 2-minute introductory video.
Meet Ray. Ray lives on a farm.
Apologies.
He loves playing kickball with his grandkids, but lately he's gotten a little slower and been visiting the doctor a lot more often. This is Kim. Kim lives in the city. She loves to exercise, cook healthy meals, and can't remember the last time she called in sick. They're both people, but not all people are the same. And yet, when we visit the doctor, our treatments don't look that different. Why is that? Because we just don't have enough information to do it better until now. Enter All of Us, the research program based on precision medicine. Precision medicine is a revolutionary new approach to treating and preventing disease that's personalized instead of one size fits all. By gathering health data from 1 million people like Ray and Kim and Trevor and Samir, our country's best researchers will be able to develop treatments that are as unique and complex as we are. With this new information, doctors will have a better understanding of disease so they can innovate the next great breakthroughs in medicine. Once enough people join, suddenly everything changes. Information becomes clear, patterns emerge, and simple data transforms into life-saving knowledge. This means that Ray and Kim's children and their children's children can live longer, healthier lives. By becoming one of the first 1 million people to volunteer, you can help reshape the entire future of healthcare for generations to come. If we can figure out how to fly, put a man on the moon, and connect the entire world, surely we should be able to improve the future of healthcare. Not just for Ray and Kim or even you, but for all of us. Sign up at joinallofus.org. The future of health begins with you.
Great, thanks so much for watching that with me. And now we'll move on to talking more about the community awards. Essential information about the awards this year can be found on our website or using the short URL featured on the screen. That's bit.ly/NAPC awards. This year, our community awards will fund projects that meet the following award goals: further individual and communities' knowledge of and skills related to health literacy, digital literacy, and understanding of clinical medical research, build and strengthen partnerships with communities who are underrepresented in biomedical research, raise awareness of All of Us and interact with All of Us partner organizations, and increase awareness and use of NNLM All of Us learning activities, NLM, and other trustworthy health information resources. Our application process this year and project support are specifically designed to help your projects meet all of these award goals, from planning to implementation to evaluation. One way our organization supports community organizations to meet these goals is through offering a wide variety of engagement activities that can be used not only during any of your community award projects, but at any time. You can explore a lot of these resources on our website, allofus.nnlm.gov. One webpage I'd like to highlight is our Engagement Resources Library webpage, which is a great place for community award applicants to get an idea of what kinds of resources you can include in your project activities. In addition to the resource library, we also offer a variety of other engagement opportunities throughout the year, including virtual health programs like film screenings and author talks, as well as programming kits for libraries, organizations, and families to use to build knowledge and skills in digital health and research literacy. So the image at the top here is a preview of our precision medicine traveling exhibit, which can be set up in your community. The bottom left image here shows a child using one of the activities in the Test the Waters Family Exploration Kit, which is a programming kit focused on environmental health and water quality in your community. And the bottom right image here is a screenshot from one of our latest panel discussions focused on a film about Alzheimer's research and music therapy. So this is just a small snapshot of the various activities we offer. So going back to the award itself, to be eligible to apply for our community awards, your project lead organization must be a current NNLM member, a community serving organization, and based within the United States or US territories. Your proposed project must also not be already receiving All of Us funds. This is because we cannot duplicate funding for the same All of Us activities. We strongly encourage first-time applicants and new NNLM members to apply, and we're always happy to provide support and consultations for any interested applicants. So projects this year can request up to $30,000 in funding, and this is inclusive of direct and indirect costs. Up to 5 of these $30,000 awards will be awarded. The funds this year are distributed as cost reimbursement subawards to the awarded organizations. This means that your organization will need to pay for project expenses and then submit invoices to us to recover those costs. To help you with your project planning, here are a few important dates you might want to consider. So the last day to submit your application is August 26th, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. in your time zone. We thought that might be a little bit easier to manage. Application review will then start immediately the following week so that hopefully you'll be notified about our funding decisions the week of September 5th. Then, based on whether if you're offered funding and then you choose to accept it, we'll need some time to initiate a project contract with you in order for you to receive those funds. So the formal project performance period will start on November 1st, 2022, and then end on April 30th, 2023. So please note that that is 6 calendar months. Last but not least, all final reporting and invoices for your project will be due April 30th, 2023, so the same date as the end of the project performance period. In this next section, I'll now go over a little bit more about the funding requirements for community awards. So when you apply for a community award, you will agree to adhere to funding requirements if funding is offered and you accept. These requirements are to ensure that your project meets award goals, as well as any requirements coming from our funders, the National Library of Medicine and the All of Us Research Program. To make sure that you have the information and tools to meet these requirements, the NAPC offers individualized project support. So this kind of support in the federal grant world is often referred to as technical assistance. So you might hear that phrase used in various documents and messages. So first, project leads will be expected to attend a kickoff session, as well as attend a few check-ins throughout the project performance period. These brief check-ins will be with your assigned NAPC liaison to address issues and answer any questions. Outside of these sessions, you're always welcome to reach out to your award liaison or our office. The NAPC can offer additional support, such as guidance for successful implementation of NLM and all of us resources in your project activities, connecting you with all of us or NNLM speakers or partners, evaluation support, and anything else you might need. So one thing these check-ins can help with is making sure you are on track with any reporting and evaluation requirements. So this first slide here highlights a little bit more about what those reporting requirements are specifically. First, throughout the project, you'll need to track any public events or trainings funded through the community awards by using the activity tracker spreadsheet. Then, on a monthly basis, you'll share a brief update on how the project is progressing using a short update form. Finally, at the end of the project, you will submit a final retrospective, which is a reflective exercise on how well you think the project achieved its goals and its intended impact in your community. We want to recognize that, staff often have a lot of things going on outside of the project itself. So our intent here is to make reporting as straightforward and structured as possible while still capturing essential information. And this is a process that we're constantly trying to improve. So if you have any feedback, if you are awarded as you're going through this, we'd love to hear it. Another requirement is that funded projects with public events or trainings must distribute standard All of Us survey questions. This is to understand how community award projects are promoting awareness about the All of Us research program, which is one of the award goals. You can see a preview of some of these survey questions in the application guide on the award announcement. These surveys are meant to be voluntary and anonymous for participants to fill out. The specific requirement is that you distribute them at your events. So for example, at the end of an event or a training, you might share out a link or a paper survey for folks to fill out. Whatever survey responses you do collect must also be shared with our office so that we have that data to share with our own funders. In addition to these survey questions, if you plan on asking any other evaluation questions at events or trainings, you'll need to share those questions with our office as well. These are just the minimum requirements for evaluation, and if you plan on doing additional evaluating of project activities, we're always happy to support that as well. And this last slide here just shows some additional requirements related to funding specifically and some other NLM and NIH policies. So for funded projects, as I mentioned earlier, you will need to create a contract with the University of Iowa, who will oversee the management of these funds. So in order to do that, you'll be expected to share financial information in a timely manner so that the contract is ready to go when the project performance period formally begins in November. So more information about how to prepare for this contract initiation, as well as additional NLM and NIH policies, can be found in the award webpage. So now we're moving on to the next part of the webinar, which is how to actually apply. So if you think you have a suitable project based on the award's eligibility criteria, dates, and funding requirements, then you're ready to start the application process. All application materials and instructions can be found on our website at bit.ly/NAPC awards. And just as a reminder, applications are due August 26th. I also want to note that I see in the chat that questions are coming up. I love that. Just want to note that we will answer all questions at the end of the webinar. So thanks for your patience. So to start your application, you'll need to download the application materials from our funding webpage. On that webpage, there's also an application guide, which has a lot of in-depth information about the award itself, funding requirements, proposal writing resources, examples of successfully funded applications in the past, and more. So I definitely recommend that you take a look through that when you are starting out on your proposal. So from there, you'll actually start to prepare your application. So your application itself should include the proposal template, which is your primary project planning document, and also supporting attachments like your project budget, staff resumes or CVs, and letters of commitment from organizational leadership and any community partners. Templates and instructions for attachments are all available on the award announcement as well. Once your application materials are all prepared, you are ready to submit them through our online Qualtrics submission form. If you experience any issues with uploading your files, you can always email them to us directly. You'll need to use the subject line Community Award Application so we don't miss your materials in our inbox. Next, I'll overview the specific application sections and share some tips for preparing your proposal. So as I mentioned before, the proposal template is your main project document. If you have applied for NNLM or All of Us funding in the past, you'll notice that our application process is a little bit different. So instead of writing long project narratives, the application is broken down into shorter components that are used to describe your project purpose, plan, activities, staff, and budget. So as you're scrolling through, you might have noticed that there are a lot of questions, but hopefully upon closer inspection, you'll notice that they're pretty short and specific. And we designed it in this way so that way you know as the applicant exactly what we're looking for in your project plan. The application guide also has detailed instructions on what a strong proposal will look like. So again, just re-emphasizing that that's a great resource to refer to as you prepare your application. So first in the proposal template, you'll need to provide some basic information about your organization. Initially, you'll be asked for 4 identification numbers to help process your application and contract if funding is offered. So those 4 ID numbers are your NNLM membership ID, your institutional DUNS number, your tax ID, and a SAM.gov unique identity ID. The last 3 numbers are required for all organizations receiving federal funds. Please note that only the lead organization for your project will need to provide these ID numbers when you submit, and that's because that's the organization we'll set up the funding contract with. So that's the only organization we would need those numbers from. You might want to check with your organization's financial contact or department for those ID numbers, and just emphasizing now that you'll want to get those early so that way you're not waiting for them when you need to submit your application. Next, you'll then provide some basic information about your project, including a project title, who is going to lead the project, any partner organizations, project dates, and then a summary. One thing to keep in mind while planning your project that I mentioned earlier is that you will only have 6 calendar months to fully implement, evaluate, and report on your project. So during application evaluation, reviewers will be looking for projects that have clearly considered what is able to be done in 6 calendar months. And just as a note, in the future, we do hope to offer awards with longer timelines. In the next section, you'll then tell us more about your intended audiences and why this project is needed in your community. This is a good section to develop in discussion with any community partners. You'll also need to provide specific evidence to support the project need, such as needs assessments, statistics, and anecdotes. A few national level resources are provided in the application guide, but reviewers are also looking for any community level evidence and how it might inform your work. So you might want to refer to any community level public health surveys. Maybe your town has a strategic plan, any anecdotes or observations that you've seen while working at your organization directly with the community, things like that. This section, as well as your work plan and letters of commitment, should illustrate how you have or plan to build the community partnership and support needed to implement your project. The next section, the work plan, is all about showing how the work will actually get done. So this is another section that would be good to develop with your community partners. The first subsection is about the project goal and objectives, and it will allow you to discuss when and what gets done, as well as who will do it. You'll then provide more information on what NNLM and all of us resources you will use, which is an award requirement. Next, you'll describe your evaluation plan to assess how well your project meets your goals. Finally, if your project involves purchasing technology, or you would like to continue a project previously funded by NNLM All of Us, you'll then have to answer an extra question or two to just provide some additional details. Determining roles and responsibilities in the work plan will make it easier for you then to fill out the next section, the staff plan. In this table, you will provide basic information about the people who will accomplish project activities, as well as indicate if any additional hiring is needed. You'll also submit staff resumes and CVs as part of your application. The last section of your proposal then will be the budget justification. You'll also need to submit a budget plan as an attached spreadsheet. Just some things to keep note of while you're preparing your budget justification. You'll want to make sure that your budget's direct and indirect costs do not exceed the award limit of $30,000. If you have any expenses that will cost over $1,000, so say that you're buying a telehealth booth or some kind of large technology equipment, be sure to include a price quote. More information on what to include in your budget justification can be found in the application guide. While planning your budget, you'll also want to be transparent with any community partners on what funding you're requesting, what it's for, and what resources are needed to carry out the project. You can use the budget to verify activities in the work plan and the staff support in the staff plan. So just making it clear what the project funds will actually be used for. When you're preparing your budget, you might want to make note of the items that the community awards will or will not fund. So your budget may include any of the following costs: staff, equipment, materials and supplies, communications such as publicity materials, consultant and contract fees like speaker fees, and any indirect costs. Our awards will not fund food, furniture, or promotional items. However, there's a caveat. Some of these items might be allowable if they are integral for your program. So for example, in the past, we have funded nutrition programs at public libraries where someone wants to do cooking demonstrations. In that case, you obviously would need to buy food in order to actually do the cooking demonstration. So in that case, purchasing food is allowable. More information about other allowable costs can be found in the application guide, or you can reach out to us to get clarification on if specific expenses are allowable or not. So as you prepare your proposal, you'll also be preparing the attachments that I mentioned earlier to supplement your project plans. So again, this includes your budget, letters of commitment, and staff resumes and CVs. There are templates for the budget and letters on the award announcement webpage if you'd like to use those. The information provided in these attachments should also align with your project plans in the proposal template. So it might be a good idea before you submit everything to just sit down and compare all the documents to make sure that they clearly align. When you submit these through the online submission form, it would be really helpful if you could combine the letters into one file and then the resumes and CVs all in one file. It's just a lot easier to manage your application materials that way. But if you have any issues uploading the files for any reason at all, you can always just email them directly to us. Just don't forget to add in the subject line, Community Awards Application, so that we know to look out for it. So those are all of the application components. And now I just wanted to reiterate some application do's while preparing your materials. So do plan a project that is within the project performance period of those 6 calendar months from November to April. Do plan a project that meets the award goals mentioned earlier, with specific emphasis on being specific about what NNLM and all of us resources you plan to use, as well as collaborating with any community partners you might have on your project proposal. You also should consider any project evaluation needs, especially as to how they might align with the evaluation and reporting requirements mentioned earlier. Then be sure your project or your budget total is no more than that award limit. So really emphasizing that $30,000 limit. And then last but not least, be clear, concise, and intentional in your responses. We don't expect all applications to max out every word count or write these long narratives. However, the goal is that when reviewers are looking at your application, we should be able to clearly understand your project goal and plan. So once you've applied, here's what happens next. The NAPC will review your application the week of August 29th. If you'd like to see what criteria we will use when evaluating project proposals, you can see that again in the application guide. Funding decisions will then go out sometime the week of September 5th. So these decisions, some of the different, statuses might include funding is offered pending revisions, and then unfortunately not being able to fund your project this year. All formal communication about your project and funding decisions will be sent via email from our email address, lib-napcengage@uiowa.edu. Since that's where all communications will be coming from, it might be a good idea to add our email to your contacts or check your spam folder regularly to avoid missing any important information about your application. If you are offered funding and accept, a contract will be initiated to reimburse your organization for project costs. I mentioned that earlier. So we'll be working closely with awarded organizations to make sure all of that paperwork is submitted sometime no later than mid-September. And this is to give, again, our home institution, the University of Iowa, ample time to process and initiate those contracts. That way you are all ready to go starting on November 1st. Please note that you won't be able to submit any invoices for reimbursement until that contract is complete. So that's why we have a pretty tight timeline on getting that ready. As you prepare your application, we are always available to help you with anything you might need. If you have questions about your project and budget or have technical issues accessing or submitting application materials, those are really good ways reasons, to reach out to us. Our team can also provide initial cursory level feedback on any application material drafts if you think that would be helpful. Just please note to allow our staff up to 5 business days to complete this review. So as many folks recommend when there's a deadline, right? Get things in earlier, the better, to allow time for that feedback and integration of any comments. And as I mentioned, the best way to reach us is via email at that address on the screen. So this concludes what I have prepared for you all today for the informational webinar about the Community Awards. Just want to reiterate that the recording and slides will be shared on our website as well as the NNLM YouTube channel. So with that, I think we can now transition over to the Q&A. But if folks need to hop off, thank you so much for joining us today. And then this last slide I'm going to show here, a few registrants did submit questions when they were registering. So I just wanted to show some pre-prepared responses for that while I take a look at the chat. So thanks so much. Let's see what the chat has. Stephania, do you mind helping me, or anyone on our team, do you mind helping me putting it together? Thanks, Ingrid. Okay, so I'm going to start with the questions Ingrid has collected for me here. Please let me know if we missed any questions. So the first one is clarifying 5 awards nationwide. Yes, up to 5 awards are available across the nation for all NNLM members. The next one is the final report the only required report, or will there be regular reporting required throughout the project? I hope that slide about the reporting helped clarify your question. Please let me know. If not, I'm happy to provide more information, but the only formal report is that final retrospective and then submitting things through that tracker as well as the monthly progress updates. The next question is, if the performance period is over April 30th and the evaluation and invoicing for expenses is also due on that date, isn't the performance period really less than 6 months? We can't do a project provision up to April 30th and have evaluation on a complete by that date as well, or am I misunderstanding? That is correct, that if you think about it that way, about what you need to have done by April 30th and then the project performance date, technically you would have less than those 6 calendar months. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we understand that this is a pretty tight timeline, and we're working to make that a broader timeline in the future. But yeah, if there are specific concerns about that timeline for your project in particular, that would be a conversation to have with your award liaison to clarify. So apologies for the non-answer, but it'll probably depend case by case. The next question is, project kickoff, is that done virtually or is travel required? All technical assistance is entirely virtual. So yes, for kickoffs, we'll, in order to make it as accessible as possible, those sessions are entirely virtual. The next question is, how is community serving organization defined? That's a great question. So we recognize that NNLM membership extends beyond just libraries. And so we wanted to, this year for the community awards, we're really focusing on any organization who directly, I mean, very literally, right? Like serves the community. If there's a mechanism that your organization has or programs, projects in which you're directly connecting with the community, that for me, as someone that oversees this program, that would fall under community serving for myself. So I think someone else asked in the registration, I believe there's a question about, as an example, are academic libraries allowed to apply if they have a formal mechanism for connecting with the community? Yeah, if you're able to show that you are able to serve the broader community in your project, then that would be the evidence to show that you are eligible for it. In my purview, obviously that's a discussion that would happen with reviewers as well. But if you are not quite sure, just to wrap up my rambling answer, please feel free to email and would be happy to chat more about that. Next one, is a template of the Iowa contract available to view ahead of time? That is a great question. At this moment, I don't believe the like final contract is publicly available to view. However, we could ask our division of sponsored programs who manages grants about if that's something that applicants can preview if you're interested. If whoever asked that question wouldn't mind emailing our office email so that we have a paper trail for that question, we can definitely investigate that further for you. The next question, are pilot projects good for these grants? I think, again, sorry for the non-answer again. I think it depends on the pilot project, right? So just mentioning those award goals earlier, if you're able to illustrate that you have an idea that could reasonably meet those award goals, and again, that timeline, you're able to design a project where you can start testing things within that 6-month period, then I think definitely that would be a strong candidate for funding. But as I said at the beginning, I think it really depends on what kind of pilot you're envisioning and what the ultimate goals are. Okay, more questions. Awesome. Next question, my organization has received a community award in the past. Are we eligible to apply again? Yes. If you have applied for awards in the past, you are still eligible to apply. I mentioned earlier in the work plan section of the proposal template, if you are applying to fund a project that has been previously funded by NNLM, all of us, you'll just need to in addition to the other standard application materials, you'll just need to provide a brief statement as to why you want to continue or expand your project, as well as share any, any evidence similar to the evidence of need statement as to, why you would like to continue or expand that project that was funded in the past. But if it's a new project, then that's totally fine too. Okay, next question. Can I partner with street medicine or community family medicine practice that my school of medicine operates? Similar to the question about pilot projects, I think just outright, I couldn't say yes or no. I think, again, it would really just depend on what kind of activities you're trying to do with those community partners. In the past, we have funded projects that have worked with mobile medical units, with local health clinics to provide telehealth services at the library. So those kinds of partnerships are definitely possible to support. I think it just ultimately depends on the activities you want to do. Next question. I'm loving this. Who can we reach out to just discuss a potential project? Please reach out to our office email that I mentioned earlier, or if you, thanks Linda for putting that in the chat. I think if you could provide like a sentence or two about what you're thinking of, and it's totally okay if not, if you're just wanting to talk about project ideas generally, that's fine too. But if you have an idea and could include that in the office email, what will happen is that we then triage consultation requests amongst our engagement team. So we would want to make sure that we schedule a meeting with any interested applicants with an engagement team that is familiar perhaps with the activities that you're trying to do, to have that informed conversation. And then I might likely be at that conversation to answer any questions about feasibility, like logistical types things in relation to this grant itself. So that was my very long answer. Okay. Next question. Oh, hi, Dr. Hurley. If you've had an All of Us grant from the past that was already successful, can we continue that program along with your approval of our improvements and innovation? Great question. As I mentioned earlier, to the question about if you're eligible to apply, if you've received an award in the past, yes, you'll just need to provide in your proposal just an explanation of why you'd like to continue the project, what evidence you have, like showing, again, the need to continue or expand that project. So as long as you share that in your proposal, that would be really helpful for the review process. So yeah. Is it okay to ask for less than $30,000? Yes. It is just it's a maximum limit, but you don't feel like you have to hit that. Yep, great question. Regarding the note about the extra statement for continuing or expanding previously funded projects, does that apply only to NNLM All of Us funding? We have a project that previously had NNLM funding, but not All of Us funding. This is a great question to make that clarification. You only need to provide the extra statement if you have received specifically NNLM All of Us funding. So that's just because these awards, the funding also comes from All of Us, whereas the other NNLM awards across the other regional medical libraries, those do not have, most of them do not have All of Us funding components tied to it. So that's a great clarification question. If you're not quite sure if a previous project has received All of Us funds or not, feel free to ask us via email. We can go back into our project database to clarify that funding source for you if you're not sure. Great question. Okay, sorry, y'all. I went into the chat first and need to look at the Q&A too. Okay. Cool. So the questions in the chat were both Q&A and chat. Thank you to my awesome team for pulling those together. Have I hit the end of the questions? Anything else I can clarify for folks today? These are all great questions, by the way. I'm really glad. Cool, thanks. So I'll give it another minute here. So as anyone answers, or asks any last minute questions in the chat, I'll just preface again, we're really here to be available for you throughout this process. So I keep harping on that application guide, emailing us, but really the resources we spent, up until this point, doing a lot of preparation to provide resources for you all that are hopefully helpful. And if they're not, please do let us know, because we always want to improve this process as well. Oh, another question came in the chat. Thanks. Are copies of the activity tracker and monthly progress updates available for preview? So beyond the screenshots on these slides, not currently, but I am happy to provide a preview. The reason why they're not available right now is because we're still in the process of tweaking them and updating them based on feedback from last year. But if you would like to see what they looked like from last year, I'd be happy to, when sharing out the slides, I can also add a link to a preview of that tracker on the appropriate slide. So hopefully that helps. But if not, you can always email, and happy to get you the information you're looking for. Cool. Well, if that is the last question through the chat, I think in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and stop